各位观众大家好，我是黄齐元，欢迎收看智门 Smart Gate 以及我们的线上节目 Dr. Change 黑天鹅学院。最近很重要的一个议题当然是区域经济，这也是跟川普2.0有关。很多的台湾的公司都在思考海外的布局，特别是东南亚，过去在泰国、越南，那现在呢，这关税比较低的是菲律宾。菲律宾呢变成了一个很重要的台商投资的地点。今天呢，我很高兴有这个荣幸请到菲律宾高级的官员，他是菲律宾贸工部的副部长，the Vice Minister for Industry Development, Trade and Investment Promotion, Ceferino Rodolfo 来到我们的节目。那我待会儿呢会用英文跟他对谈，让我先来欢迎他。Welcome to my show, Dr. Ceferino Rodolfo.
Thank you, CY. It's my pleasure to be here with you, and hello to your audience at SmartGate.
Thank you very much. Could you tell us why you are coming here? You understand you are coming to the trade show.
I attended the Computech trade show together with a very important Filipino businessman. His name is Dennis Yu. He's owner of one of the biggest tech companies in the Philippines.
Oh, really? What do they do? What does this company do?
Mainly, they're into Wi-Fi broadband, and they have the largest network of fiber optics in the Philippines.
I see.
They're into many other things like software development, AI, data centers, etc. So we've been closely collaborating with the private sector in terms of bringing in investments into the country.
Yeah, and then how's you feeling about the Computech this year? I know a lot of people attending.
Very vibrant, very, very vibrant. And really when it comes to innovation and technology, the latest, we can find it here in Taiwan.
Yeah, Jensen Huang, NVIDIA, is also here. He caused quite a stir. He announcing Taipei gonna be the new offshore global headquarters for NVIDIA. And then he even selected the site in Beitou, Shilin. I attended his speech. That was really inspirational. In Taiwan, he is like a superstar.
Rock star.
Everywhere. His status is just like the Chinese Elon Musk. But he is a much nicer person than Elon Musk.
But actually, CY, this is my, maybe in 3 weeks, this is my second time to be in Taiwan.
Oh, really? In 3 weeks? Why Taiwan is so important to you now?
I'm a frequent visitor of Taiwan because of the strong interest from Taiwanese companies.
Absolutely.
In terms of the Philippines and our role in the global repositioning of supply chain, particularly for export manufacturing, electronics, because of the Trump tariffs.
Exactly. Talking about the Trump tariff, what is the tariff for Philippines?
The country-specific tariffs, which were announced in April 2, we were pegged at 17%.
Yeah, 17 is relatively low, compared with Vietnam is 46%. Taiwan is 34% or something.
Yes,
yeah.
We're the lowest in the region next to Singapore, which is at 10%. And then, of course, as you may well know, everyone now is at a 10% level because of the 90-day pause. But we're very positive. My boss, Secretary Frederick Go and Secretary Chris Roque, I've accompanied them to Washington, D.C. last May 2 for a discussion with Ambassador Jamieson Greer, the USTR. And it was a very, very good meeting, extremely good meeting. We are currently just have a non-disclosure agreement with the USTR, but it was an extremely good meeting. And we're looking at a very positive result come the end of the 90-day pause period this July 9. Our negotiators, technical negotiators, are in discussion.
So you will be one of the first batches of the countries to receive the final result. Okay, that's good. It must be a very busy day for you recently. And so I appreciate very much that you're taking the time out of your busy schedule to come to my show. Could you describe what type of industry or company that you are seeing, electronics, IT, or other industry, or across the whole spectrum, any industries?
For Philippines in general, our biggest selling proposition really is our workforce. We are a country of 118 million people. The average age of a Filipino is about 25 years old. And we speak good English. Almost everyone in the Philippines speaks English. And we have a very trainable workforce. So our value proposition really builds on our workforce. So anything on manufacturing, export manufacturing, anything that will make use of a talented workforce, we are there. And in addition to that, one of our biggest assets also would be our natural resources, in particular our critical minerals. Philippines is rich in what you call as the green minerals that can be transformed into green metals. Nickel in particular, nickel, copper, and cobalt. These are minerals, metals that the world needs as we transition to a more sustainable future because they are much needed in terms of the battery technology. Philippines is now the biggest exporter of nickel ore globally, so we account for about 25% of the global supply of nickel ore. And in addition to that, of course, we are promoting AI technologies, data centers, also electric vehicle manufacturing, pharmaceutical and healthcare, and tourism and infrastructure.
Okay.
And renewable energy.
Renewable energy, all very important. I think we're gonna touch that one by one. Copper, I didn't realize that you are so rich in copper. Copper, of course, is very important these days. And you have the population, you have the natural resources. These two, Taiwan don't have. We don't have that many population, and our natural resources are rather limited. But we have talent, the high skilled technology. We have talent, we have a tech industry, we have the tech infrastructure. So that is what we have. But on the other hand, it is true that the Taiwanese company do need to go to the we call southbound policy, go to Southeast Asia, and then in light of what Trump is doing, go to the United States. So we are heading both ways. Share with me why in the last decades, Taiwanese company tend to select more in countries like Vietnam or Thailand. Although Philippines, there is a long time. I know that the Philippines history date back with Taiwan 50 years ago. But why, relatively speaking, was not so active for Taiwanese company in the last decade?
I think the big reason is because of the proximity of Vietnam in particular to China. The manufacturing powerhouse. I know that Taiwanese companies were the ones that really started the manufacturing sector in China. As cost increased in China, in particular in the southern part, companies were looking for an alternative, the China plus one solution. Vietnam was the natural choice because it's just really adjacent to China. So it's very easy for logistics purposes. But now, given the geopolitics, the trade war, etc., what is very important now is closeness, not or proximity, not just to China, but in particular proximity to East Asia, to the countries that have invested heavily in China and in Vietnam, Thailand, in mainland Southeast Asia. So in particular, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. That is where the Philippines would have a very strategic advantage.
For your information, I have a client, that Uni President, that is the largest food and beverage company, Tongyi, in Taiwan. They also operate the 7-Eleven chain store. And I understand that Philippine one is also operated by them. They have a lot, like 4,000 something chain store. We, FCC partner, one of my subsidiary company called Cardinal Ren, is managing a incubator. The incubator is the subsidiary of a Uni-President group called...
They just put up a innovation hub in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Recently, a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago. That's
yes,
the one.
Yes.
So that is the President, the information system. So there's an innovation hub there. And our people, my team went there as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I manage the incubator here in Taiwan. And then we operate jointly with Tongyi Zixun, the subsidiary of Uni-President Group, and then they cooperate with a Philippine partner. So you are aware of that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good to hear.
We are getting a lot of attention also when it comes to tech startups because of our young population. Innovation normally comes, sorry to say, for older people like us, for the younger generation, really. So, and that is where the advantage of the Philippines is.
That is great. So the Taiwanese company, could you help us to understand? I need to go back to the basic 1, 2, 3 geography. Philippine people usually invest in the north, south, central, or break down into how many parts in a Taiwanese company is where. Just like Vietnam, you have a southern Ho Chi Minh City, northern Hanoi. So tell our audience, if they're interested in Philippines, how should they look at it? Basic knowledge?
Yeah, there are 3 major islands in the Philippines.
Okay.
Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
What's the second one called?
Visayas.
Visayas.
That's where very popular for Taiwanese Cebu as a tourism destination is. Very nice beaches. Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
Okay.
But for the large part, when you talk about manufacturing, it's focused mainly in Luzon. Within Luzon, you have the Calabarzon area. Calabarzon stands for Cavite, Laguna, and Batangas economic zone. So that's in southern Metro Manila. So Metro Manila is where the center is, the capital, and then
of
you
the
have
Luzon Island.
of the Philippines.
Philippines.
Manila is the capital, and you have a
But
great.
they are near the north, right?
Yes, near the north. So it's the closest major island to Taiwan. So this is where you have the manufacturing center of the Philippines. So that is Calabarzon. Now, if this is Manila, south is Calabarzon. To the north would be your central Luzon, where another popular destination for Taiwanese tourists and manufacturing activities would be Subic and Clark. Particular, these are the
苏比克
former
跟那个克
Subic.
拉克基地
These
military
were
base.
host to U.S. military bases.
Now they are tourist spot.
Mainly tourism and also manufacturing. And also service like BPOs, data centers, also AI.
Business processing.
They are very strategically located, especially in the context of Asia Pacific, because they used to host the biggest bases of the U.S. outside of continental United States. Clark for the air base and Subic for the naval base. So surely they are in very strategic locations, in particular from the perspective of the U.S. and mainland Asia, which is why it's a very good value proposition for Taiwanese companies.
And then are the military base still there? Are they increasing, decreasing, or stay the same?
No more.
No more.
The military bases are no longer there. These had been transformed into industrial zones.
But I
Industrial
thought there are
estates.
still military in Philippines, right? From
Okay.
US or no more?
There are what you call as EDCA sites, Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement sites, where they host military exercises with the US as well as many other countries.
So they stopped the military base since how long ago?
That was way back in, I think, 1990 or 1991. But during that time, you have to also remember, CY, the manufacturing powerhouse of the Philippines used to be in Central Luzon, around where these bases are. But in addition to the leaving of the American bases, there was one significant natural factor that happened, and that was the eruption of Mount Pinatubo, a once in a 400-year event that happened in, I think, 1990 or 1991. With that eruption, the manufacturing gravity in the Philippines went to the south, went to the Calabarzon area. And very critical in there was the role of the Japanese in terms of developing this area. Now, several decades after that, and with the leaving of the military bases, we have transformed Subic and Clark to be industrial freeport zones with very good infrastructure in terms of airport, connectivity, etc.
Because there are many of my clients and many Taiwanese companies are in the IT and high-tech related areas. Is there a particular place or park which is more suitable for technology companies?
Yes, especially Clark. Clark, because if you are looking at air connectivity as an important component of your logistics for
Clark is how far
shipment,
away from Manila?
maybe about 40 minutes to an
Oh,
hour.
not far that.
And very good highway, very good connection.
Okay.
And it has an international airport. It has all of the facilities, hotels, and very important would be several universities in the area, including a campus of our University of the Philippines. There is our Bases Conversion Development Authority. It's a government corporation that owns the area, the land assets which were left by the U.S. bases. Our BCDA is actually dedicating, right now, initially starting from a 1,000 hectare area that can be dedicated to Taiwanese investors in high-tech manufacturing who would like to go there.
Okay. I rarely travel, but my wife does. I know a lot of Taiwanese tourists. What are the most popular tourist spots?
Several. You can have your choice. From the Visayas, we have, of course, Cebu, as I mentioned earlier, for those who would like to go to beaches, to go in scuba diving. That's a popular area. Another area is in Palawan, El Nido, and also Boracay. So these are award-winning destinations. And of course, you have Clark, in particular for the Taiwanese who love to go to and play golf. So many choices in the Philippines, from beaches to mountains to cultural areas.
And that's interesting. I think Taiwan, a lot of people in recent years all go to Japan. But the recent rumor that in July there will be a tsunami or something, earthquake, so some people get scared. They say, oh, maybe we don't go to Japan. I think Philippines may be a better choice.
Yeah, I hope that for Taiwanese investors and as well as Taiwanese as tourists, when you go south, you don't go too far south and stop in the Philippines, because we are really your closest neighbor.
So Philippines is on the north of Vietnam, right?
This is Vietnam, this is the Philippines, and this is Taiwan.
Yeah, okay. So Philippines is somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So coming from the Pacific, we're the first major landmass that you will hit from the US side. Typhoons coming from the Pacific would hit Philippines first, and then we export them going to the north to Taiwan, Hong Kong, or going to Vietnam.
By airplane, how long does it take from Manila to Taoyuan Airport?
1 hour and 15 minutes. 1 hour,
that's
20
very
minutes.
close.
Very, very close.
So even closer than Vietnam, take 1.5 or 2 hours. Yeah.
Yes, very close.
That's good. I should definitely visit it more often. And then can you talk a little bit about the earlier talk we discussed, the technology, not everybody talking about semiconductor, AI. Is Philippines also have the motivation in developing a tech industry? And if so, what are your policies or the measures that you are preparing to attract, for example, Taiwanese companies, tech companies to go over there?
Okay, I just mentioned that I was here with Dennis Uy, who is also the special envoy of the president for digital technology. So he's building a tech city right very close to Clark, what I mentioned earlier. And this will focus really on software development and
Remind me again that the name of his company.
Converge.
Converge. And his name is Wei.
Dennis Uy.
Or Dennis Wei, okay.
Our starting point really is our manpower. So we're working closely with our universities to upskill and upscale skills of young Filipinos. And then next would be to make sure that there is sufficient connectivity between academic institutions, industries, and even individual households. That's why the role of telecoms is very important for us. Then we are working on a AI strategy for the Philippines that would include several items, including for infrastructure, including sovereign data discussions.
Talking about the energy, I know that Philippines, some of my clients, they are going there, the green energy, solar or whatever. I know quite a few Taiwanese companies are looking at that. Can you share with us what are the renewable energy related opportunities in Philippines for Taiwanese investors?
So CY, for the past 2 years, ever since President Marcos Jr. ordered the lifting of the equity restriction on foreign investments in renewable energy, Philippines has had tremendous inflow of renewable energy investments, in particular on solar and wind power projects. For wind power projects, of course, there had already been investments in the past on inland wind power projects. What we are also seeing increasingly now are the offshore wind power projects.
Offshore wind power.
And then on solar, in addition to inland solar power projects, we are also seeing floating solar power projects. By the way, CY, when we were together in December for the SIA event, I shared with the group the biggest inland solar power project in the world is in the Philippines. It is being developed as we speak, and we expect the first megawatt to come out of the phase 1 of that project by early 2026. It's a 3.5 gigawatt solar power project.
Okay, that is excellent. So where are Taiwanese companies in the past until now primarily based in Philippines?
There are 2 major areas. I mentioned Calabarzon earlier. So because the supply chain for electronics and electronics manufacturing is
that is
very
the middle
robust.
one, right?
That's the southern part
okay.
of our capital. Now, there are also strong concentration of Taiwanese companies in Subic and in Clark. But we are seeing that especially with the opportunities coming out of the trade wars, the geopolitics, the tariffs, that increasingly there would be more Taiwanese companies in the central Luzon part, in particular in our New Clark City. The 1,000 hectares that I mentioned earlier, that
It's
are
a New
being
Clark
offered-
City.
New Clark City.
Okay.
Yes.
I assume that you must receive a lot of inquiries from Taiwan in the last several weeks.
Yes, heightened by what's happening with the tariffs. And I think right now, it will even intensify after July 9.
Right. Yeah. That's one of my clients, Sercom, a telecom equipment company. They are invested, in Philippines. Actually, I know their chairman, Wang Wei, James Wang, very well. That was a while ago. He was very proud of it. He said, "Oh, everybody, you go to Vietnam," but I decided to go to Philippines. At that time, I didn't know why. But last Saturday, I was I met him during a dinner, and I say, "Oh, James, salute to you. Your decision was marvelous."
The foresight that Chairman James had, even before the pandemic, to decide to go to the Philippines when everyone was going to
Vietnam.
I was not supposed to say Vietnam, but yes, indeed, to Vietnam. But right now, I think it really makes a lot of sense.
Right.
not
One
just
of the
for-
reasons he said that we are I know it's a language. He said we are an international company, and the Philippines speak English. That is very important for us, and then plus the human workforce. So over 100 million. So 118 million.
118 million
Wow,
population.
118 million. That almost makes you maybe the second largest in Southeast Asian.
Yes,
after
after
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah.
But we're thankful for Sercom because right now they employ, I think, 5,000 workers already in the Philippines.
You say they hired
They
5,000
hired 5,000
5,000
workers
workers.
and even growing.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And then the other way around, are there? I know that may not be your responsibility, but are there many immigrants from Philippines to Taiwan as well?
Our worker population now in Taiwan would be maybe between 200,000 to 300,000. And we thank Taiwanese companies for really treating Filipino workers very well.
Right.
In the companies that I visited, factories that I visited, Filipinos are saying that Taiwanese business owners treat them as family, and we're very thankful for that.
And the next question is a little bit sensitive, but I must ask you, because they were asked by my clients as well. They read from the paper recently the political tensions between the president and the vice president. We don't know what's going on, but we know there's fighting. Marcos and the vice president was the previous one. How do you pronounce that?
President Duterte?
Duterte. What is going on? Is that affecting business or no impact at all? Because of people reading so much news on paper, they are a little bit concerned.
Maybe two things. Like Taiwan, Philippines is a democracy.
Yes.
So it's common in democracy to have these political
Tension.
alignments, tensions, but that's normal.
Right.
The important thing is as we have elections, these are held peacefully and these are well taken by the general population. So in that particular case, Philippines is a functioning democracy. And also very important is that we have free press in the Philippines. Unlike in other countries where maybe news and events can be subdued, in the Philippines, we have a hyperactive press and even amplified by social media. So I would say that for an ordinary businessman and even big businessmen, investors, there is little effect of the political situation in the ordinary course of things.
That is very much well understood. I think that the analogy was Taiwan is the right one. We are also democracy. But Taiwan is now facing strong, the competition, the fighting amongst the DPP, KMT, and the other party. So DPP have 40% of the votes, but they control the ruling party, and the others are 60%. But they have different opinion fighting. But as long as it's not turning into a riot, I think that is okay.
Yeah. And also in the Philippines, you would see that the trajectory of policies when it comes to economic reform has always been towards liberalization, economic reform. And there is strong convergence of interest and opinion among the political leaders, whether they are from competing factions, that we need more investment into the Philippines.
Right. And then what about, this is just like Taiwan. Taiwan, we have this tension with mainland China. Recently, it's even more, tension, close tension. And the Economist magazine of UK recently have a cover story 4 years ago, they had a cover story about Taiwan being the most dangerous place on earth. But recently, they published another cover story about Taiwan. They say Taiwan is still dangerous. So our President Lai, is now keeping a relatively low key in his May 20th speech. He deliberately low profile, try not to provoke, the mainland China. But I know there's also tension, frictions between mainland China and frictions, particularly on the sea. Is that still going on?
We look at the tension between Philippines and China when it comes to the territory. Something that is grave, something that is very serious, but it does not fully define the relationship between the Philippines and China. Of course, in our part, our policy is that we will not be giving up, as well as is true with any other country. Any sovereign country, we will not be giving up even an inch of our territory. But there are plenty of other areas that we can discuss and collaborate with China, including on the economic part. China is still the biggest trading partner. China and Hong Kong together are the biggest trading partner of the Philippines.
But is it true that there are some Chinese company after the change of the president, they left or they decided to maybe move resources to other countries due to the competition between the tension?
Not really. What
really.
we are seeing are those that are already in the Philippines have continued to expand.
Okay. Talking about, let's come to the Taiwanese company. You already mentioned the advantages, including the close geographical proximity, the population, 118 million population, the English speaking, and then the low tariff. Are there any other advantages you can think of that are important for consideration of Taiwanese companies?
I think culturally and value system-wise, there is a close alignment between Philippines and Taiwan. Also because of our geographic proximity, there are many Taiwanese that have gone to the Philippines and as well as many Filipinos that have gone to Taiwan. So I think these are the intangibles that are also very important as you do business in a country. And then next, when it comes to our business environment in the Philippines, we have recently passed a very, very good and very competitive incentive law. It's called the Create More. We offer income tax holiday as well as lower corporate income taxes, enhanced deductions on certain cost items that are very important for competitiveness if you locate in the Philippines.
It's interesting you mentioned the culture, although I understand culture, the religion, Philippines is more the Christian, the Taiwan Buddhism, but the value system, I think, is very similar. And then they are also strong, relatively strong. Yeah, the family orientation. There is also a Chinese influence of Taiwan because also, from China. That I do agree.
And by the way, CY, I may forget this, so let me just say now. In the Philippines, there is industrial peace. So we have almost 0 labor strikes per year.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's one. And the labor turnover, maybe less than 5% per
But why is that in particular?
Because there's a strong tradition of closely working together between our labor sector, government, and the employers. So our tripartite system of looking at industrial development is working well.
That is excellent. Could you share with us, in recent years, what are the major foreign investors in Philippines?
Oh, for example, outside of Sercom, there are, for example, Dyson, very popular Dyson brand that produces hair dryers, vacuum cleaners. UK-owned, Singapore-based, but they are now being produced in the Philippines. And that includes also their software development center globally that is in the Philippines.
Really?
Yes.
Dyson, OK， 它这个是做那个什么吸尘器啊，什么这个英国很著名的品牌。Yes.
Of course, for the South Korea, we have Samsung. Their presence in the Philippines is also quite strong, in particular for ICs, for automotive. Also, of course, Texas Instruments, the usual semiconductor and electronics companies are in the Philippines.
Okay, all of these are very impressive.
And garments manufacturing. We also have very good garments.
But recently, garments manufacturing now challenging, the Donald Trump. I know a lot of garments, moved to like Bangladesh, in some
Cambodia,
even to Africa, Lesotho, and some of those countries. But garments is, I know quite a few Taiwanese company, textile, they have factories in Philippines, garment companies. In your observation, the industries, what are the challenges? We talk about the good things, but are there anything, the hurdle you still need to overcome?
power cost.
Power cost.
But that is also why renewable energy is a very strong sector in the
But why
Philippines
power
around.
cost is high?
Power cost because we don't subsidize power. Cost of power in the Philippines is really market-based. Unlike in other countries within the region that subsidize power, particularly fossil fuel-based power, in the Philippines, we don't. But as there is greater pressure now on other countries to remove the fossil fuel subsidy, that is where the advantage of the Philippines kicks in, especially because given the higher power cost in the Philippines, we are attracting more renewable energy investments in the country. So we're turning this into something that is positive.
Let us go back to the characteristics of the politics. How many parties you have? How we observe, the election system is president or parliament, whatever. I read this from paper, but I don't really quite understand. But although recently caught my attention, it's a president, vice president. That seems to be really big news. But other than that, what are the general politics, the party, and the system, or the election system in Philippines?
We were basically patterned after the US presidential system. So we have the president at the highest level, we have the vice president, and then we have two houses of Congress. So you have the House of Representatives, that's about more than 300 congressmen.
Oh, so this you're like the US, you have the representatives in the House, and then the other is the Senate.
The Senate.
Oh, that's exactly like the US.
Yes. The House of Representatives are elected by district, so by localities. And there are representatives also coming from the party list. Specific sectoral interests are represented also in the House of Representatives. The Senate, there are 24 members of the Senate that are elected nationally. Our president is eligible only for one term.
But I know you're one term, 6 years.
Yeah. 6-year term, longer than the US 4 years. So normally we have a national level elections, including election for the president. That's every 6 years. Every 3 years, there are what we call as the midterm elections, where you elect local government officials plus 12 of the 24 senators. Okay. We are a multi-party system.
Okay, so this, as long as you say that now very similar to the United States, then we understand. Next question is, explain to us the heritage of the people. Like in Malaysia, they have people Chinese, Indian, the local Malays, and whatever. In Philippines, are there different ethnic origin of people?
Yes, we are a multicultural, multi-ethnic country. But you would see that among Filipinos, you would see maybe about 10% would have Chinese blood. So like myself, I cannot trace all the way to...
Oh, so you have a Chinese origin?
Oh, yes.
From Canton?
Mostly from southern China.
Southern China, yeah.
And
Guangdong
then,
province.
Of course, Malay would still be the dominant ethnic influence in the Philippines. But we have influences from India, Western cultures, especially the younger generation now, very global.
You have a lot of people, younger people. What is the education level? Universities and the thing like, are most people well educated?
The general aspiration is to have a college degree. There is a free education system in the Philippines from elementary to high school, and then several state universities. I would say that maybe about 70 to 80% of the Filipinos could enter the university. We graduate about 800,000 to 1 million university graduates every year.
Understood. In terms of like your sector attracting foreign investment, for you and for the government, what are the key objectives for 2025?
In clusters of 3 years, there are very strategic sectors that had been the primary focus of investment. So for example, in the past, it has been on telecoms because that was one of the biggest problems of the Philippines in the past, connectivity. And it is driven by changes in policy. So a few years back, government made a decision to allow for shared telco towers. And that has really attracted a lot of investments in telecoms. in the past 2 to 3 years, as I was mentioning earlier, we have been attracting a lot of investments on renewable energy. Now, for the next 3 years, I think it will be mining and mineral processing.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. Very interesting. It's interesting, Mr. Rodolfo, you mentioned about mining, but why suddenly mining become a strategic industry? I can think of several reasons, like Russia, Ukraine, rare earths, U.S., but you are not rare earths. You are some other mining, but why mining suddenly becoming important?
Because of the global transition to more sustainable development, in particular, the need for minerals that are important for battery manufacturing.
And battery needs a lot of nickel.
Nickel, and then cobalt, and of course, as you transition to electric vehicles, an electric car would need 40% more copper than the internal combustion engine vehicles.
You also have produced copper.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do have.
Are there any foreign multinational mining companies in Philippines?
Most of the mining companies are Filipino-owned. What we really would like to attract investments in would be in mineral processing. I mentioned earlier that Philippines were the biggest source of nickel ore globally. Maybe about 20% of the nickel that we produce are processed by a company called Sumitomo Metal Mining. The processed nickel are exported to Japan, transformed into battery precursor materials, then transformed into batteries by National Panasonic, and then exported by Japan to the US for electric vehicles in the US. The other 80%, we export unprocessed, mainly to China. Maybe about 98% of those go to China. The remaining little percent, maybe 2%, are exported now to Indonesia.
But Indonesia is also rich in mining.
But I think they have overproduced when it comes to nickel processing, that they now need to also import nickel ore. For the past 5 years, their import of nickel ore from the Philippines has been increasing at 30% per year. In fact, last year it was even higher than 30%.
How interesting is it? Okay, that is new, but that is also very interesting. What are the ranking, of foreign direct investment in terms of a country? How would you rank them? China, Japan, Korea? I'm just trying to figure out the top 5 and whether Taiwan what is the ranking of Taiwan?
In FDIs in general, in the approved investments, biggest investors has been European countries.
Oh, European countries.
Because of renewable energy investments. So I think the number 1 country is Netherlands, Switzerland, and then followed by maybe Japan, US, South Korea, then Taiwan. If you look at manufacturing, mainly these have been coming from Japan and South Korea and Taiwan. But just because of the scale of investments in renewable energy, the European countries had been driving investments into the Philippines.
Right. And then the renewable energy, is this primarily dominated by foreign companies or local companies or half-half?
We are now seeing a mix. Ever since the president lifted the equity restriction on renewable energy, we have been getting a lot of foreign investments in renewable energy. But typically, right now, what we are seeing is that there would be a Filipino company that would develop the project, aggregate the land, get the business permits, etc., until they reach a point of commerciality or bankability. And at that point, there would be private equity firms, infrastructure firms, energy firms that would be coming in to invest in the project.
You probably heard about that several months ago, our Minister of Economic Affairs, Richard Guo, he has this idea about the solar in Philippines. And then he want to build maybe an undersea cable in a transback to Taiwan. Have you heard about that?
That is being discussed.
But then there's a lot of criticism because he's a businessman, but the people talk about the feasibility. But I guess it's not the issue about feasibility. I think technically it is feasible. It is really the cost.
The economics of it.
Economics of it. Because I know in Singapore, because Singapore is a small island, they also need electricity. So they have connecting to Australia. That is even over 1,000 kilometers. And the Philippines, it's about 300 kilometers, from.
Actually, the southernmost tip of Taiwan and the northernmost tip of the Philippines. Very close.
Yeah, very close.
It's possible. It's really possible.
Right. That is very interesting. So I think a power collaboration.
See why, in addition to power connection, very important also is to use that connection also for information, for data. Since you're going to connect it anyway, why not also connect data, higher value data?
Talking about that, are you planning to have any data centers or somebody already investing data centers in Philippines?
Yes, the president just recently inaugurated a big data center that is being operated by our biggest telco network, PLDT, in the Philippines. And many other companies are putting up a hyperscaler and, very important now, AI-ready data centers.
Just like in Taiwan, because earlier you mentioned about the challenge. In general, do you have a sufficient power? Like Taiwan, we have some power shortage because we, especially government, just closed down the nuclear power. When the world, everybody is starting the nuclear, government shut down the nuclear, and only we and the Germany shut down nuclear, and the renewable energy is not quite there to match the gap. So we have some problems. What about you?
Yes, correct. But that's also where renewable energy investments are very critical. Because right now, those who are investing in data centers are also very conscious that the power for these data centers would have to be green and clean. Otherwise, they won't be able to attract hyperscalers to also come in. And that is where the advantage of the Philippines is. In addition to our geographic location, very strategic, that would be at the intersection of between US and Asia, interconnectivity with our subsea submarine cables. We are actually the fourth most attractive country for renewable energy investments based on the Bloomberg New Energy Report.
Oh, really? After whom?
I'm not sure who are the biggest ones. I don't want to
But
speculate.
you rank number 4.
We're number 4.
That is very impressive. Can you talk with us about your ministry? You are the Vice Minister of Industry Development, Trade, Investment Promotion. It is easy to understand. This in Taiwan is called Ministry of Economic Affairs. But then for you, this ministry, how many divisions, what particular part are you focusing on?
Okay, so we belong to the Department of Trade and Industry. And under the Department of Trade and Industry, our functional group is in charge of industrial development and investment promotion. So, for example, I head the agency called the Board of Investments. So, we set the policy direction, of course, as guided by our minister and our legislators and the president. We set and implement the policy directions for industrial development and for attracting foreign investments, and also in terms of building the capacity of local investments in the Philippines. Within our group, I'm also the supervising undersecretary in charge of the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, NDC, the National Development Company, and also export promotion, that's also under our group, and the bureau that is in charge of trade remedies in the Philippines.
I understand you have been in this position, Vice Minister, since 2016. That's a long time. Perhaps you share with us a little bit about your background and your experiences.
Thank you for asking that, CY. I was actually a teacher.
You're a teacher?
I was a professor in a university.
Teaching what?
Teaching business economics, leadership, management.
Okay.
I was a teacher for 19 years before I got recruited into government. I started actually my government service in 2013 as a trade negotiator. So I was the chief negotiator for the Philippines FTA with EFTA countries. Most recently, I was also the chief negotiator for the Philippines-South Korea FTA, and also for the IPEF for the pillars 2, 3, and 4. But in this particular position, I had been here since 2016. So I had been appointed across 3 administrations now, starting from President Aquino.
You are evergreen. Must be capable. You cannot be replaced. Nobody can do a better job.
So many other people can do what I do, but with the help of the private sector and the confidence of those above me, my principals, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're so humble. But then I think you must be busier and busier now with right now, geopolitically, the strategic location of Philippines is very important and very ideal. And a lot of countries are suddenly looking at the Philippines and Taiwan. I know many of my clients are looking closely at the Philippines. Existing clients like Zhonglei, Sercom's already there, but there are many more to come. Of course, you are welcoming. Could you observe the trend? What trend do you observe? This a new wave of FDI. Are they big company, small company in any particular sector or from a particular region?
We've been seeing increased investments coming from East Asia into the Philippines, in particular from Japan, South Korea, and from Taiwan, particularly on high-tech export manufacturing and also on the industries that are needed to support these high-tech industries, including, as we mentioned earlier, renewable energy. Because what we're also seeing in terms of export manufacturing is that their power requirements have to be green because of the zero carbon commitments of their principal buyers across the whole value chain. So that is a very important factor that we're seeing. And also, in terms of what I mentioned earlier, strong interest in mineral processing.
What is your forecast GDP for this year? What's last year and this year forecast?
The first quarter GDP growth of the Philippines was at 5.4%.
Well, that's very good, same as China.
Yes,
5.4.
second fastest in the region. But I think will be the fastest
That's after Indonesia.
after Vietnam.
Oh, after Vietnam.
After Vietnam. But with what is happening, given the level of tariffs that are being imposed on other countries, while projections by multilateral agencies point to a growth rate in the Philippines of GDP of between 5.5, maybe about 5.5%, I'm really more optimistic because
that's for the whole year.
For the whole year, because
Right.
of what I am seeing on the ground. I think we can do better than 6% this year.
What's the percentage last year?
5.6, 5.7%.
So you're saying this year will be flat or better or worse?
I think better than last year.
Definitely.
Because of what I am seeing in terms of interest in the Philippines.
Yeah, so you are day to day, you face investors. So very encouraging the calls from various other places. We're toward the end of our show. What are the recommendation from you to a Taiwanese company who are considering, not yet decided, considering to invest in Philippines, and they are also looking at other countries, maybe Thailand, Vietnam? Give another sales pitch to them. Why Philippines?
Well, first of all, because of the very close relationship that we have with Taiwan. Not only geographically are we proximate, but culturally we share similar values. Very important also is that you are now already hosting, most likely you're already hosting Filipino workers in your company's factories here in Taiwan. Very good time to also locate in the Philippines and take advantage of the Philippines' ability to negotiate trade agreements with other countries, including with the United States. Philippines, we could be your home base for the US market and also for the ASEAN market. And then very important, we promise you ease of doing business. We have a green lane facility that would take care of your permitting processes or all of your applications with respect to government. So the Board of Investments is always here ready to assist you as what other Taiwanese companies have seen in terms of doing business in the Philippines. We are always here ready to assist you. And then we have a very competitive fiscal incentive regime that would make your businesses more viable. And then lastly, of course, our workforce is top-notch in the world.
Are there any caveat or reminder for them if they want to come? Any things they should look at or be well prepared in order to have a smooth transition?
Very important also is to get in touch with our economic team that is based here at the Manila Economic and Cultural Office, so that even before you go to the Philippines, we could already provide you with the proper information and already match you with possible partners and locations in the Philippines, so that you can have a very productive visit to the Philippines as you explore your options.
Thank you very much for the excellent advice. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and pleasure today to invite the Vice Minister for Industry Development, Trade and Investment Promotion from Philippines. Over the last 60 minutes, I think Mr. Rodolfo gave us a very comprehensive overview about the investment climate of Philippines. As we can see, there are many very attractive terms, including our geographical proximity, the workforce, and the very efficient government organization. I think Taiwanese company at the Trump 2.0, especially right now, at the critical juncture of shifting, migrating your supply chain I think we highly recommend Philippines, and then it is also the destination strongly recommended by the Taiwanese government due to Taiwan is like Philippines, have very strong ties with the United States. And then so Taiwanese government is understandable, supports Philippines strongly. We have the honor at the end of last year, SIA Southeast Asia Impact Alliance, 东南亚影响力联盟 inviting Mr. Rodolfo. And today at our show, he come the second time. So I'm really very thankful for your coming. And I promise that SIA will actively promote, and the IFCC partners as an investment banker will also facilitate the trade and the direct investment between Philippines and Taiwan.
Thank you, CY. It's an honor for me to be speaking with you and for you to provide me a platform to also speak with all of your Smart Gate audiences. Thank you, and let's work together.
Yes, let's work together. 谢谢各位观众的收看，今天也谢谢鲁多夫先生的来。今天我们的节目就到这里，下周我们同一时间再见。See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.